So Gumloop just rolled out their own MCP. And in this video, we're going to take it for a spin. I'm going to connect it to Cursor, plug it into some of my apps, and show a workflow here that shows the potential of this Gumloop MCP. So I'm inside of Cursor here, and I have Cursor hooked up to some of my apps like Airtable and Gmail and Google Calendar through Gumloop MCP. And I'm going to see if we can kind of use Cursor here similar to an AI agent and see if it can act as a personal assistant of sorts. Send an email to Sam Altman and ask him if he can do lunch tomorrow afternoon. So I'm going to fire off this prompt through Cursor, and what it should do is try to access the contact information that I have for Sam Altman, which is really just my email address, inside of Airtable. Okay, so it's telling me I'll help you send an email to Sam. First, I need to look up his contact information in Airtable. So now we have Cursor hooked up to our Airtable database. It can read entries and it can write new entries. So if I expand this, you can see it's calling the MCP tool. It's calling the base and the table ID from Airtable, and it's going to look for Sam Altman's record, his name and his email, which is really just my email. And we can see here, retrieved one record. Now that I have found his contact, I'll create a calendar event for lunch tomorrow afternoon and then send him an email. So let me hop into my calendar over here, and you can see that it is blank over here. And so I'm going to run this tool, and it should create an event with Sam. So you can see it's created the lunch event over here. Now it is 8:30 a.m. I haven't figured out time zones in Cursor, but you can see how quickly it created this lunch with Sam Altman event in my own Google Calendar. Now let's see back in Cursor what it's trying to do next. So let's open up this MCP tool, and you can see all of the data that it's working with here, and it was able to create that event in Google Calendar, and now it's going to send an email about the lunch invitation. So I'm going to run this tool, and I'm going to hop over to my email, which is Sam Altman's inbox, and if I refresh there's that email to Sam Altman asking about lunch. I hope you're doing well. Would you be available for lunch tomorrow at 12:30? I've added it to our calendars. Let me know if you prefer a different time. So just within Cursor, I'm able to chat with and direct all of my apps, or many of my apps, without even building out a workflow, just by sending a chat in natural language. So what's going on here? Gumloop just announced their Gumloop MCP, and it basically allows you to hook up some very popular apps like Google Calendar, Slack, Google Drive, and Airtable, and talk to and interact with them right now inside of Cursor, which is while I'll be doing this demo, Claude locally, and they say ChatGPT is coming soon. So let me show you how to set this up. To get started, you will need a free Gumloop account, and you're also going to need Cursor in the demo that I'm doing. Again, they do offer this locally for Claude, and coming soon ChatGPT as well, but we're going to roll with Cursor. So once you've got your free Gumloop account, you want to go to this MCP page up here, and these are the integrations that they have right now on launch. So how this works is you have to hook up each of these integrations directly in Cursor. So to get started, once you have your free Gumloop account, you can go into your settings and your profile by clicking on these view personal settings, and you need to set up the credentials for the Gumloop MCP. So if you search for add credential, and if you search for Gum MCP, you'll see right over here, I already have my key generated, so I'm not able to generate another one, but search for the Gum MCP API key, click generate, and then you will have access to that key, which you'll need for the next step. All right, so once you have your key for Gumloop MCP, we can come back to this MCP page here with all of the integrations, and you need to set up a connection for each app. So I don't have Perplexity set up yet, so we can use this as an example, okay? I'm going to come down to try MCP connection under Perplexity, and now we're taken to a page with the installation steps. And again, we can use this in Cursor, in Claude with a local server, and you can also host locally. So for the installation steps on the Get Started page, right? So we already have our Gumloop account We've already generated our API key. And what you're going to do next, I'm not going to show it on my screen, but you're going to click this Generate Server URL button, and you will get a unique Gumloop MCP URL that you're going to need for the next step. Actually, the code is encrypted, so I could show it on my page. So after you hit generate, you're going to get a URL that looks like this. So just copy it to your clipboard for the next step inside of Cursor. All right, so we just need to add that URL in Cursor. For Cursor, go to Settings and then Cursor Settings. Click on Features and scroll down a little bit until you get to, there we go, MCP Server. So you can see I have Slack right there. All of my keys are below and I don't feel like blurring out. So I'm going to stop here, but all of my MCP servers are below this screen over here. And the way that you add the new one is just click this Add New MCP Server button. You're going to name it. So this one is Perplexity, and leave the type alone. And then you're just going to paste in your URL, click add, and you should see it turn green, which means that the connection is successful. All right, so in terms of connection with Cursor, that's really all you have to do. Now, I could test this with Perplexity. I'm just curious because I haven't used Perplexity yet. I'm just going to say, do you have access to the internet through the Perplexity MCP connection? So again, I just want to test this. We're going to do a different workflow in just a second. So it's saying, yes, I have access through the Perplexity MCP connection. I can use the web searching the function or have a chat with the models using the chat function. Let's ask, so there was college basketball games on last night. So let's ask, who won the men's Duke College Basketball Elite 8 game last night? Now let's see if, so Duke won by 20, I think. It's saying it's going to search. Now it's calling the tool here. So this is running inside of Cursor, searching Perplexity. So again, Duke won by, I think it was about 20 points last night, and it got it. Number one seeded Duke advanced to the 2025 Final Four by defeating number 2 seed Alabama 85-65. All right, so that's just a very basic, quick demo on getting it set up and showing that, in fact, we are hooked up to Perplexity and it is calling it through the MCP tool. So we added Perplexity, but if you want to follow along for the rest of this demo, again, I'm going to be using Google Calendar. I'm going to be using Airtable for our database, and I'm going to be using Gmail. So you can set up those connections. It should take just about 30 seconds. So for our contacts database, again, this is just a very, very simple example. I'm going to be using Airtable, and all I have is a name field, an email address field, and a company name field. So Cursor will be able to search this database when I ask it to schedule events with someone. You could set this up in Google Sheets separately because they have a Google Sheets connection, but I'm going to roll with Airtable. That's really all you need to get started, is this simple Airtable setup along with getting these connections set up inside of Cursor. So you could just start prompting Cursor from what you have set up right now, but during my testing, I found that it was helpful to create a markdown file in Cursor with some very, very basic system prompts. And this is just giving the agent, it's giving Cursor context on what it actually does have access to. Because if you start prompting it to send emails and looking up contacts, it's not really going to know where to search for your contacts, even though it has access. So all I did was I created this personal agent markdown file, and I'm not going to read this whole prompt. You can pause the video, but I'm saying you are my personal assistant. You have access to the following tools via GumCP, Airtable. And I say, look up contact info from the base in the table. And those two pieces of data right here, this app and this table, is from your Airtable URL. So this little bit right here, and then the table is right there. So those are the 2 bits of information that I'm feeding to Cursor in that first sentence. Then I'm telling it that it has access to Google Calendar to create and view events. I am also telling it the date. I mean, this is not practical in an everyday scenario to have to update the date every time, but I did find that Cursor struggled with identifying, if I said next Tuesday, right? Because it doesn't have any reference on the day and the time. And even if I do ask it, 12 p.m. tomorrow. It never got that correct. Just a fair heads up. But in terms of the rest of the prompt, I'm saying that it has access to my Gmail. This was Google Sheets, even though we're not using Google Sheets in this example. And then for general behavior, combined tasks, for example, right, it can do more than one thing with a single prompt. And then when sending emails, I instruct it to first look up contact in Airtable, create a calendar event when scheduling meetings, and send clear, concise emails with appropriate context. So again, I just did a new file here, a new text file in Cursor, created this very basic system prompt, and then I saved it as a personal agent instruction so we can use it going forward when we're chatting with the agent. All right, now it's just a matter of sending a message to the agent inside of Cursor. So have a new composer window open. Make sure you're in agent mode. And I do find it's extremely helpful to tag our little file here that we created, the system prompt, the personal agent. So I'm going to add that file, pull it up here, right? So now we have this as context for the agent, and I'm going to collapse. And now I'm going to send off my prompt, similar to what we did before. Can you schedule a meeting with Sam Altman tonight at 8 o'clock to talk about the new image generation model, and send him an email to make sure that time works for him? All right, so I've got my prompt fired up here. I'm going to submit this, and we're going to see what happens. So Cursor should first try to access my Airtable database here. So you can see just by expanding here that it's calling the MCP tool. It has access to the base ID that I gave it and the table ID that I gave it. I'm going to click Run Tool. So now it can see it. We can see it retrieved the one record. There is Sam's name. That's my email address. And there's the company name, right? So that's the exact record that it pulled in from Airtable. And now it's saying, now that I have Sam's contact information, I'll schedule a meeting in Google Calendar for tonight at 8 p.m. And I do have to click Run Tool every time. It would be significantly more efficient if it kind of just went off and did this, but I'm going to hit Run Tool and it's going to do the same thing. So it said it created the event. Again, I can call this drop down here and see all of the details. So we have the summary here, the start day and time, the end day and time. So I notice it gets the time correct, and this could be an issue on my end with my settings, maybe Google Calendar. It gets the time correct here, I believe. But when I hop into Google Calendar, we'll see if it's actually 8 o'clock tonight. But it has the description, it has the attendees. So it's telling us here the result was created successfully. And there's a little summary here, and it even gives me a link to the Google Calendar event. All right. And now it's going to do the third step. So it says, now I'll send an email to Sam to confirm the meeting time. So again, I'm going to run this tool. It should take just a second. And so you can see I've completed both tasks, scheduled the meeting, and sent Sam the email. I'm going to drop down this over here, and we can see the to field. We can see the subject, and we can see the body of the email. Now, when I hop back into my calendar, this is the meeting with Sam. It does say 4 o'clock. Again, if anyone knows how to fix this, let me know. But this is the new event that we just created, the image generation model discussion, 30-minute meeting tonight at 4 o'clock. So it nailed that one. And if I hop into my inbox here and refresh, let's see if the email popped up. There's the meeting. There's the email. Meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. Image generation model discussion. Scheduled the meeting for us tonight, and it is using Sam's correct email, which is just my email. So you can see once it's hooked up, once we give it a bit of a system prompt, it is able to run these executions with all of our connected apps right inside of Cursor. So I think what's going to be most interesting about this is when Gumloop, and this is from their post, when Gumloop kind of integrates this natively in the Gumloop platform itself. Like what I want to see is some kind of chat node similar to N8N. They have a great chat node where you can just chat with your workflows and chat with your automations and instruct it to do things natively in the canvas. So listen, it's really cool that I can hook up Cursor to Airtable and Google Calendar, but what I want to see is this native support within Gumloop, and they're hinting at it that it's going to be rolling out in the coming weeks. I'll be sure to do a new video on that as well. I think that's where it can get really exciting when, I just want one platform to run everything, and importantly, to be able to chat and direct my workflows and my agents directly in Gumloop. Hopefully we'll see something similar to that, but they're definitely hinting that the MCP support is going to come natively to Gumloop very soon. So if you enjoyed this content, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know in the comments below what kind of automation you want to see me run next.